Hawk from Discourse. I'm going to spend the next half hour or so giving you a general overview of some of the key features of Discourse. So what you're currently seeing is the same Discourse instance on both sides of my screen. On the left, I'm logged in as a brand new user, and on the right, an administrator. For those of you that don't know anything about Discourse, we design it for the primary purpose of encouraging safe and healthy discussion on the internet. It's a lofty goal, but it's one that we're really passionate about. So let's start at the beginning with how to configure your site. We often get asked whether you need to be technical to get a Discourse community up and running from scratch. And the answer is no, definitely not. The first thing you see when you sign up for or spin up a new Discourse instance is our handy setup wizard. So this wizard walks you through all the necessary steps that are required to get a Discourse site up and running. And you can rerun it at any time for a quick change, as I'm doing right now. So it does everything from contact information all the way through to look and feel. You can rerun it at any time for a quick change, as I just mentioned. So we'll finish that. Setup's really simple, but if you're someone that likes things a little bit more complicated, behind just 2 clicks, you've got access to every single setting that there is. Now let's have a look at the user experience. You've got everything up and running. You want to see how things are going to look for your members, who, let's be honest, this is all about. So the first thing a brand new user sees when they experience a Discourse forum is our onboarding bot, who by default is named DiscoBot, but as with anything in Discourse, that's fully customizable. And what Discourse bot does is he takes you through a series of simple steps in the form of a fun tutorial that familiarizes you with the basics of using a Discourse site. So if you continue to the end, you end up with a snazzy certificate with your name on it and all of the tools that you require in order to get going with Discourse. But for now, we'll stop there and look at some of my favorite features. All right, let's jump in and perform a simple task that we often ask our members to perform. And that's the introduction. So I read through other people's posts and I jump in and I start to introduce myself. The first thing I see over here is some just-in-time messaging. So this kind of messaging is built in right throughout Discourse, and it's one of our key tools in the war against unwanted behavior. As a site admin, you have the ability to fully customize both the content of these messages and whom it is that sees it and when. So you might choose that a new user sees this message just once or twice. You might choose for them to see it every single time they post, although hell, that would be annoying. So we'll get rid of that right now, and we'll go to reply. Here's another just-in-time message. I can't. In this particular case, it's suggesting that I make my post a little bit longer, or else just use the like button if I'm going to make something that short. I'll make my reply. I'll jump over here onto the right-hand side. I can see that there's new content. So I will reply to this brand new user. I'll quote. So what you can see over here on the right-hand side is this new user can see that I'm replying. And that's really handy, especially in support communities, because it lets people know that someone's there, help's on the way. There we go. What you'll see there is Discourse has cleverly stripped out that quote because there's no need to quote the content of the post immediately before you. Makes no sense. Just cleans things up a little bit on the interface. All right. So while we're on the subject of new users, this is a really good time to mention trust levels. So Discourse is built on a system called trust levels. And what that means is that a brand new user in Discourse is treated like a brand new user in your home. You don't know them yet, you don't know anything about them, and you want to make sure that your property and your family are protected. So in a community situation, that means that the brand new user is sandboxed. And as you can see here on the right, you get to make the rules for your community's new members. This brand new member on the left is able to create a new topic because by default, that's what my settings have said, excuse me. But I could change that now so that a trust level of 1 is required, in which case this brand new user with a trust level of 0 can no longer create a new topic. We won't do that because that's a bit inhibiting. But for your audience, that might make sense. The more time a member spends reading posts and contributing to the community, the more we trust them and the more that they can do. So we essentially drip feed them functionality. And as well as protecting ourselves, that ensures that they're not overwhelmed with functionality. They don't give up. So this system, in tandem with our flagging system, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, empowers your loyal members to create the kind of culture that they want within your community. It also takes a huge load off your moderators. And lastly, trust levels can be leveraged for gamification. So for example, you could create private areas of your community that only members with a high trust level can access. And they might lose that access if they don't maintain their trust level by continuing to visit your community. This also means that trust levels are a really great way to float your super users to the top of your pecking order. You can give them limited moderation rights so that they can moderate content, not users. Again, taking the load off your community team so that they can focus on more important work like strategy. Okay, we've talked about trust levels and people. Now let's talk a little bit about content. Embedding a video on Discourse is as simple as dropping a link into a topic. Find a link. And I'll drop that into the interface right here, and I can see over on the right-hand side a preview of my topic. Drag that up a little bit. If I reply here, I can now play that video straight from the interface. While we're here, we may as well take a quick look at social sharing. So if I click the share button, I've got a couple of options. I can send an invitation to a user either by email or username, or I can share their content to whatever social platforms the administrator has set up. Code blocks are also rendered really nicely. I reply, I hit the code button in my composer and drop in my code. It's automatically rendered in a way that makes sense depending on what kind of code it is that I'm posting. External content is handled really gracefully using one-boxing. Look at that. The primary information that I need in order to ascertain what this document is about is automatically dropped into the composer. All I would have had to do to write this topic is to just drop a link in. Similarly with iframes, I love this map example. Drop a link into a topic and I can interact with it straight from the composer. Right. While we're here, let's look at another couple of features like assigning. You can see that this topic has been assigned to me. I could unassign that and assign it to another member of my team. But what's really nice about having assigned topics is you can jump up here. I can have a look at my assigned list and I can see what tasks that I've still got outstanding. While we're here, we'll have a quick look at this. Another feature of Discourse being a JavaScript app. Do checkboxes without having to refresh. It's a nifty little feature. All right, you may have noticed this little prompt down here that lets me know that it's the first time admin Haley has posted. We've discovered that these little messages trigger people to be a little bit more kind, especially if it's a brand new user who's got a new question. People just spend a little bit more time being helpful and hand-holding. And as I mentioned before, this, as with just about everything in Discourse, is behind a setting, so you can turn it off if it's not applicable to your audience. On the flip side, I can also add other messages. So I can add a staff notice which renders in the same way as this does. I could make my topic my post a wiki post, and what that does is allows other members to collaborate as with a wiki document, which is really helpful if you don't want to give people access to edit other people's content, but you want to collaborate on one specific topic. I can also add a staff notice to somebody. This is what a staff notice ends up looking like. It's a little note that I can make about a user so that my moderation team know that there is something about this guy, hopefully not an administrator, that needs to be kept an eye out. And what you're looking at here is a whisper post rather. So these whispers here are discussions that can be had between moderators, Discourse staff users that can't be seen by general members. So that's a really handy way to keep an eye on conversations that need to be moderated. But I think one of my favorite features of Discourse is local dates. So we'll have a look at the calendar. We use this at Discourse for keeping track of our staff leave. So if I drop down to the bottom, not that I'm going to be going on holiday anytime soon, unfortunately. Drop a date in. Let's look at next month, the 8th of May. So what I'm seeing here is the date rendered in my own time zone. But if someone from my team that was in another part of the world was viewing this topic on their own Discourse instance, they would see that this date rendered in their own time zone, which is really handy. And you can see here that it's been dropped into the calendar. All right, let's take a quick look at some special categories. Like this knowledge base. So Discourse has a really powerful theming engine which allows you to style different parts of your community in different ways while still retaining the same UI for your users. So the handy thing to note at this point is that as a Discourse administrator, you have full access to the markup of your site, meaning that you can use your in-house design team or a third-party contractor to theme your community. If you don't have those resources, our team can do it for you on an enterprise plan, or you can browse through the many different themes and theme components that are publicly available on our Meta forum. So this knowledge base is really handy for support communities. It means you can have a dedicated category for your documentation that makes it really easy to navigate, and having it all within Discourse means that the results show up in native searches. And similarly, is this blog category. Jump into the blog category. There we go, wait for that to render. So again, this is simply native Discourse, but it's got a theme component applied to the blog category, which changes up the styling. Anyway, I could go on about that all day, but I need to move on to moderation, which in Discourse is handled privately by a flagging system. So handled primarily by a flagging system. So if a member of your community notices behavior that they don't like or that they're concerned about or they want to draw to the attention of a moderator, they simply flag the post, decide what's wrong with it, flag the post, and that adds a notification up here for staff members. So there are a number of actions that a staff member can take when they view the moderation queue, depending on the nature of the flag and the severity. So you'll notice here that the system has assigned a reliability score to a user based on staff responses to their past flags. And that can be really handy for decision making if you're on the fence about what action to take. So if more than one community member with the appropriate trust level flags the same post, the post is automatically hidden from the rest of the community until a staff member takes action. And what that means is that, a message is sent to the original poster once the message is hidden, asking them to take appropriate action. And then if they decide to edit their post to take away whatever the issue was, the post is unhidden. If not, it stays in the review queue until staff takes action. So what that does, again, is it just takes some of the moderation load off of your staff members. All right, let's look at notifications and email. Since we've briefly discussed notifications, I should elaborate a little bit. So there are three main notification types in Discourse. The red badges that you saw just before, which are the review queue. Green badges here, which are personal messages. And then a third type of badge. Let me see if we can trigger one here. Type of badge, which is usually blue by default. We've styled it in this community to be a slightly different green. And that notification comes along when somebody likes, responds, or @mentions me, depending on personal preferences. So if a member is off-site at the time the notification action takes place, an email notification is sent to them by default. But that's customizable at a personal level. We can quickly jump in to personal preferences right now. And have a look at that. So you have some granular choices around making, around notifications and emails. You can also make some choices at a community level for your users when you set it up. But at Discourse, we believe that the onus should be on an individual to decide how many emails they want to receive from you. Nobody wants to get notification fatigue. All right, I'm just going to jump into another instance so that we've got some live data. Here we go. So what you're looking at now is the default admin dashboard. Discourse ships with some really important community health metrics in graph format so that you can see how your community is performing at a glance. There are also a ton of existing reports, which you can see here. But I think my favorite reporting feature in Discourse is the Data Explorer plugin. So this plugin gives you full read-only access to your entire database, so you can write SQL queries to your heart's content. I'll jump into one quickly. Let's take a look at this. So you can see your entire database schema is laid out over here on the right. And that brings me to the end of my demo. If you have questions, please feel free to hit us up via email at team@discourse.org and we'll help you out. Otherwise, happy discoursing. Take care out there.